noticed. Across the Pacific, the Japanese studied it closely. Over the next decade, they would expand their fleet of large carriers to 6. They would build the Zero, a state-of-the-art fighter plane. They would train 3,500 naval pilots. The carrier force that moved toward Pearl Harbor in December of 1941 was the largest and most powerful in the world. In a bitter irony, Pearl Harbor would stand as the first real-world proof that carrier aviation was the next superweapon.
When you walk out on the deck in the mornings, it's pretty impressive. It's quiet, it's peaceful. And you start to pre-flight, you can feel the ship starting to wake up. You can hear the surf going underneath the hull. You can look out on the horizon, see the clouds, and you just breathe in that fresh air, and you go, it's a good day to fly. As a division, a flight of 4, and everybody that was qualifying was solo, and that's another appeal to what we do, is that you get to go out there alone. It's on you.
Everybody says that your reputation, it doesn't matter how well you fly in the air, your reputation that everybody hears about is how well you land on the carrier.
And the formation part of flying was really shaky. I thought we should have looked better coming overhead the ship. Just some, I think that was more nerves than anything, but the 3 students, we definitely, it was pretty ugly coming overhead.
To see that piece of American territory out there in the middle of the ocean is awesome. The first time when you're coming over and you look down, you kind of get the chills. I don't know if they were nervous chills or just, but wow, it makes you very humble.
When you get out to the boat, pretty much just spend 10 minutes giving yourself this like once-in-a-lifetime pep talk. The next thing you know, towers calling you down to get set up for landing.
You have an LSR who's standing next to the wires on the deck on the landing area, and he's grading all your passes.
They're listening for the sounds the engine's making. They can tell you've made a mistake before you see the mistake. Rolled out, the ball was a little high to begin with, and to keep it safe, bumped up the power a little bit. The landing area is angled to the left of the center line of the ship. So anytime you roll up behind the ship, the landing area is actually moving away from you. Not just away from you, but to the right. So you're always lining up a little right. You'll see the plane kind of undulate. You'll see black smoke shooting out of the exhaust because you're in there fighting. Saw the LSOs go by, and they were all staring straight up at me. Saw the wires go by, it's 30 feet over them. I knew mid-pass that I just bought that bolter big time. So power back up and take back off.
A bolter is when they come around with their hook down and they land too long and they miss all the wires. And they have to go around and try it again.
The first trap was kind of a rough pass for me. Rolled out, center line. I believe it was a good start to a little high in the middle and trying to chip it down, a little high at the ramp.
The first trap there's no way to really describe how it's going to be. Just this screeching noise. Your body gets thrown forward in your seat. When you get that feeling, it's nice because you know you're in fact stopped and on the boat. First attempt at stopping on the boat, made it.
They taxi you over to get fuel, and you're still shaking, your foot's sitting there pulsing, and they taxi you up to the cat, shoot me off.
Everything goes dead silent. My first initial thought was that my engine just failed. I had to realize that I was still climbing and my airspeed was increasing to realize that I'm safely airborne.
Coming down a high start and trying to chip it down while remembering the first pass, which was my fly-through down for the one wire. Didn't want to do that. Kept too much power on it. And I forgot to put my hook down. And around I went. So second day, the fangs came out a little bit more. I guess the cockiness came out maybe.
Jordan Meredith, one of my good buddies, he had a better second day, but it ended up being, I edged him out just by a little
bit. With Rob being in the Navy, me being in the Marine Corps, Rob's chances of going back to the boat are almost guaranteed. I mean, that's all the Navy jet pilots go to the boat, whereas Marine jet pilots don't necessarily go to the boat ever again.
We've pretty much been flying together. We've gone up to El Centro to do bombing together, and obviously we went to the carrier together. So it'll be tough. He's a Marine, which means that the odds are I probably won't see him again in my career.
I was kind of depressed because the fact that Marines don't always get to go to the boat, and the fact that I may never go to the boat again, it's such a cool experience that you don't want it to end, and when it does, it's kind of rough.
Devastation at Pearl Harbor was the work of carriers. 350 Japanese planes launched from hundreds of miles out at sea. In just 2 hours, they wiped out most of the battleships of the Pacific Fleet. It was a masterstroke.
Japan had not been stopped, and there were some people in the United States who believed Japan couldn't be stopped. That eventually Japan would not only control all of China, the Philippines, the Dutch East Indies, but the northern coast of Australia, possibly even India.
In the United States, the loss of the battleships upended every plan for how a war in the Pacific could be fought and won. By sheer luck, 3 aircraft carriers had been spared. They were out at sea during the attack.
You have this bizarre situation that the Japanese attack with aircraft carriers forces the United States into a carrier-based naval strategy.
It was now up to the U.S. carriers to hold the line against Japan's Imperial Navy. In June of 1942, the Japanese fleet moved toward a pair of small American-held islands in the Pacific. Midway Atoll was just 1,000 miles west of Hawaii and strategically important. A threat of invasion was sure to draw a full-out American response. It was designed as a perfect trap.
The Americans sortie with about 50 ships. Three of them are aircraft carriers. They're facing off against what looked to be impossible odds. The enemy has vast numbers of ships, almost 200 ships. They've sortied the entire combined fleet.
The morning of June 4th did not start well for the Americans. Radar on Midway began tracking 107 incoming Japanese planes. Within minutes, every operational U.S. plane was in the air. The Japanese bombers swept through the defenses. Out at sea, the U.S. carriers Enterprise, Hornet, and Yorktown launched their planes, hoping to hit the Japanese carriers before they could unleash a second strike. Three squadrons of TBD Devastator torpedo planes reached the Japanese fleet. Flying at wave-top level, they were easy prey for anti-aircraft fire. Of 41 torpedo planes, only 4 survived. Not one torpedo scored.
The early strikes that morning, both from Midway and from the American carriers, suffer crippling losses. The casualties were just insane.
Of the men and aircraft that launched that morning, about half did not return. Meanwhile, 2 squadrons of SBD Dauntless dive bombers launched from the Enterprise in search of the Japanese carriers. They were led by a 40-year-old lieutenant commander from Buffalo, New York, named Wade McCluskey.
McCluskey gets out to the point where he's been told, the Japanese fleet will be waiting for you there. Gets out there, butkus. Nothing in sight.
Staring at the vast expanse of ocean, McCluskey had to decide whether to return his men to the Enterprise or lead them on a fool's errand.
And McCluskey
decides, well, I'm going to take my force of 2 squadrons of dive bombers and I'm going to have them follow me on a very methodical search pattern. Now, he has a little problem. He's running low on gas. And more than a few of his pilots are looking at their gas gauges wondering if the old man really knows what he's doing. And then McCluskey spots a Japanese destroyer. He figures, that Japanese destroyer is going at high speed towards something. I'll bet you that's the Japanese fleet.
McCluskey followed the destroyer. Approaching from the south, he spotted 3 Japanese carriers. His bombers plunged into their dives, catching 2 of the carriers by complete surprise. Minutes later, a 3rd U.S. squadron stumbled on the scene and attacked. As McCluskey looked behind, through the tall columns of smoke, he was stunned. The Americans had sunk 3 carriers, along with some 300 aircraft, and nearly 4,000 men.
That man and that action took the Japanese Navy essentially out of the war at that moment.
The Japanese have gone from an absolute position of supremacy to they never go on the offensive ever again. And it all came down to about 4 dozen dive bombers.
The pilots who followed McCluskey that day were ordinary men. Many were newly enlisted.
They had no right to win, but they did, and in doing so, they changed the course of a war.
The Battle of Midway was the most decisive single naval battle in U.S. history. Over the course of World War II, Navy airplanes would provide the dominant firepower in every important battle in the Pacific. Carrier aviation had proved itself beyond measure.
Congratulations, so proud of you. Well done. Keep that. Congratulations, good work, Marine.
I watched every World War movie I could get my hands on as a little kid. Attack on Pearl Harbor, Battle of Midway. The history has shown that even small carrier forces can bring a lot to bear. The way things are, one person can change history, basically. So it's a very large responsibility.
What you got there? Nice set of wings. It's a nice finish to a lot of hard work. So yeah, it's definitely a good time. I let them bask in the glory of it for a day, and I was like, guess what? The next challenge is ahead of you.